John Gont, live from Washington, D.C., in association with FinancialResolver.com.
Well, Donald Trump has delivered this huge boost to Britain by promising a trade deal within weeks of taking office to help make Brexit a great thing, in his own words. The President-elect spoke in glowing terms of his love for the UK and revealed he was inviting Theresa May to visit him right after he gets into the White House. That's, of course, this Friday. He said that he wants a trade agreement between the two countries secured very quickly. And, of course, this all makes a mockery of President Obama's threat that if the country voted for Brexit, we would be at the back of the queue. Joining me now is the radical economist who thinks Trump could be the best news business has had in 8 years. His name is Jeff Berwick. He's founder of the anarcho-capitalist blog, The Dollar Vigilante, and he's on the line now. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, John.
Why do you think that Trump will be so good for business worldwide?
Well, I've never actually really said that. I don't think any president ever is going to actually help anything. The government is actually just an evil, immoral institution. And even this so-called trade deal with Britain, he's essentially a free trade deal should always just be, if it's a truly free trade deal, it should always be one sentence. It should say these two countries agree that the people in these two countries can trade without any taxes, tariffs, or regulations. That would be a true free trade agreement. So I don't know what he has exactly in mind, but I'm sure it'll probably be a phone book of taxes, trades, tariffs, and regulations. But it's going to be very interesting to see what he does.
But it's going to be a lot better than what Barack Obama was saying. He was threatening us if we didn't agree to TTIP and if we didn't stay in the European Union, we'd be at the back of the queue. He was clearly either wrong or lying.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what's going on. Obviously, they backed off of TTIP. Obviously, with what happened with Brexit, that's very interesting. There's a lot of change going on. Hopefully, it does go the right direction to a lot more free market and free trade. But it'll be interesting to see. The devil will be in the details on what this trade agreement is.
Of course. When you talk about trade deals, then, so you would rather just have a complete free trade all around the world with every country involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want that. That would be the most best way for the world to operate. Government does nothing but just steal from people, cause problems, worsen economies through these taxes and trades, tariffs, and regulations. These just destroy economies. The government serves no useful purpose whatsoever. Just get them out of the way and allow free trade to actually happen, and we'd have peace and prosperity like we've never known it on Earth.
Yeah, very much an anarchist point of view, of course. What did you make also of what he had to say about Germany? He said Germany basically runs Europe, and he said that Angela Merkel had made a catastrophic mistake when she allowed 1.2 million refugees/migrants into Germany.
Well, I think it's important to recognize what all happened there. Essentially, the U.S. and England and NATO all attacked places like Libya and Syria and absolutely horrendous terror attacks on those countries, creating millions of people fleeing those countries, which was on purpose. And I believe it was on purpose to bring them into Europe to try to destroy the European Union and try to cause chaos, to try to bring in a different system, a more one-world government sort of a system. So it is interesting what's going on. It's interesting to see Trump say that that was a big mistake, but of course it was all planned. We'll see what happens with all of that, but essentially bringing in these refugees into Europe is just to further cause chaos in Europe so that they can have more control over the population and institute more freedom, take away more freedoms from people.
Do you find it odd that Trump isn't being treated as a globalist by a lot of people on the right? When you look at his business empire, I mean, you know, he's being treated as if he's the man who's going to be against the global conspiracy. Do you find that rather strange?
It is interesting. We're going to have to see if it's real or not. A lot of people said he was going to drain the swamp. He's already he's really refilled the swamp with people from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. You know, as with all things with politicians do, they always say they're going to do all this amazing stuff, and then they never do it. Look at Barack Obama, who won the Nobel Peace Prize before he even became president and never had one day of peace the entire time he was president. He said he was going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. It's still operating. That's what they do. This is what the old Who song, I Won't Get Fooled Again, is all about. This happens over and over and over and over to the point where you just cannot trust any politician. And so it's going to be interesting. We'll find out in the next coming weeks, months, and years if Trump actually is going to do some of these things he said he was going to do.
Better than having Clinton in the White House on Friday, isn't it?
I'd rather there's no one in the White House. I'd rather there was no White House and we actually had free markets, no taxes, no regulations, and peace and prosperity on earth like we've never known it.
Well, I thank you for your radical thoughts. Thank you for joining us this morning. Jeff Berwick, founder of the anarcho-capitalist blog, The Dollar Vigilante. You might agree with him. He says don't trust any politicians.
The world is going to be dramatically different in just a few short years. The European Union is fracturing, beginning with Brexit. Donald Trump is ushering in a new era of populism and protectionism. Government debt is wildly out of control. Numerous central banks have gone to negative interest rates in order to keep the system going just a little while longer. Capital controls are increasing, while the war on cash has been pursued with fervor in places like India and Venezuela. The World Bank, IMF, Bank of Canada, George Soros, Jacob Rothschild, and many more have warned that we are in uncharted waters and on the edge of collapse. Putting your money in a mutual fund and holding it for 30 years will not work anymore. Jeff Berwick has been warning of this since founding the Dollar Vigilante with Ed Bugos in 2010, and his calls have been epic. He was the first prominent financial commentator to tell his subscribers and the public to get into Bitcoin when it was $3 in 2011. It is currently $800.
What's your connection to Bitcoin?
My main connection is I'm incredibly excited about it. Bitcoin is a revolution in money and banking, the same way that the internet was a revolution in communication.
Ed Bugos has been one of the few to warn of the 2001 and 2008 crashes, and has been bullish on gold since its bottom in the year 2000. And together, they are holding their annual TDV Investment and Internationalization Summit this February in Acapulco, Mexico, to help you prepare for the crisis ahead. Last year at the TDV Summit, they warned of what was coming and gave advice that made attendees fortunes.
This is why we're at where we're at, central banking. Give a man a gun and he can rob a bank. Give a man a bank and he can rob everyone. And you know, we all grew up watching old westerns and people would rob banks. Now it's the good old days, and now banks rob you.
Ed Bugos mentioned 3 stocks to buy. Agnico Eagle.
Agnico Eagle is run by one of the most experienced management teams in the industry.
And it rose 76.31% since. B2 Gold Corp.
B2 Gold Corp is responsible for discovering more than 30 million ounces of gold in their careers.
And it rose 248%. And Sabina Gold and Silver Corp.
Sabina is an emerging producer.
It then rose 147%. These are terrific calls, and this year you can expect more of them. Jeff Berwick and Ed Bugos will be surrounded with an all-star lineup of speakers, including author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, who will discuss the state of central banking today. The world's most respected silver analyst, David Morgan of The Morgan Report. Bix Ware of RoadToRuta.com on discovery of the truth behind our massively manipulated markets, and to help expose those who threaten our free market system. Chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA, Bill Murphy, continues to expose the manipulation of the gold price by the gold cartel. Returning speaker Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Jesus, who recommended buying Bitcoin at last year's conference when it was below $400. It has since risen to over $1,000. Other speakers include Chris Casey of Windrock Wealth Management and Colin Cattell of Palisade Global, and many more. The TDV Internationalization and Investment Summit will be an all-day and evening event on February 24th, held in the 5-star Mundo Imperial Resort and Convention Center in Acapulco, Mexico. For the price of $395, you will spend an entire day with these experts, including an entire evening gala banquet with all food and drinks included. You can find more at tdvinvestmentsummit.com and register today because space is limited. And stay after the summit for the 4-day Anarchapulco conference with the world's biggest anarcho-capitalist speakers, investors, and entrepreneurs, including an entire day on blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies called Cryptopolco on February 28th. And for even more, Tone Vase will host a 2-day stock and cryptocurrency trading workshop after Anarchapulco called TDV Pro Trading Techniques on March 2nd and 3rd. It will be an entire week of activities, and it all starts with the TDV Internationalization and Investment Summit on February 24th. Register now.